So now we're going to show you how to paint the helmet. So for a start, we're going to use a matte black or the flat black. You thin it down with a bit of water. All right. You can just use a number 2 filbert brush and just apply it over the helmet. Right, this black is going to serve as the undercoat. Again, we are not looking for coverage. The main purpose of this undercoat is to serve as a base for the paint to go on. All right, so you can see right now the brush is a bit overloaded. All right, so you can see the paint scattering uncontrollably over the surface. So what we need to do is to drain the brush, and we need to proceed to smoothen out the surface. All right, so what we're doing is that we are trying to achieve an even distribution and spread of paint around the helmet. All right. Okay, as you can see, because of the water, right, there's a lot of bubbles, so we need to make sure these bubbles are eradicated. So you can see, notice my actions. I'm actually trying to sort of pop the bubbles with a stippling effect, or rather a stippling motion, to just pop the bubbles and at the same time trying to diffuse the colors. All right. At the same time, we also can replicate the coarse texture that is. We can actually replicate the coarse texture of the M1 steel helmet, okay, by using this stippling effect. Okay, so just to repeat, we are looking for an even distribution of paint, not paint coverage. All right. So the reason we added water is so that the paint can be able to be spread much easier. Okay. So I'm cleaning up the brushes now. You can see on my palette, I have green, right? Okay, this is the camouflage brown here, all right? So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to mix the black and the brown together. I'm combining possibly about 60% of black with 40% of camouflage brown. So it's a very dark brown mixture here, all right? Okay. So this is going to help us imply two qualities. First, the shadow, as well as elements such as mud or dirt. So we're going to start off dark before we work light. So notice how I'm applying the colors. I'm actually working upwards towards where the highlights are. All right. Again, we are not looking for coverage. We're looking for an even distribution of paint. So using the number 2 filbert brush in this case, I'm applying the colors very thinly and in an upward motion towards the highlights. Right? And again, we complete each stroke by pulling the brush bristles away from the surface. All right? All right, so you can see as it goes up towards the end, if you lift your brush strokes, you get a very soft finish. Okay, all right. So now we're going to employ a somewhat similar technique to dry brushing. Okay. So this is the military green that we are using. Sorry, this is actually park green that we are using. Very bright. So to achieve the olive drab color, we are combining it with black red. Right. So this olive drab color is actually mixed from a mixture of black, red, and green. Right, in this case, park green. All right, so the more red you incorporate into the mixture, the more brownish it will appear. right? So because actual olive drab tends to be, well, drab. And just to enhance its visual appeal, I would recommend you to actually sort of tweak the color a bit, make it slightly a bit more brighter. All right, therefore that's why we are using such a bright color. All right, so now I'm going to, before we start to apply the color, we'll make sure that we are able to get the right consistency of paint. Right now what I'm doing is I'm removing any excess paint in the brush. All right, so pulling out, I'm looking for a uniform distribution of color in the strokes, testing it out on the glove, and then just lightly, all right, lightly just pulling the stroke downwards, all right, pulling the stroke downwards. And what we are effectively trying to attain here is to imitate the direction of light fall. All right, so we're pulling it downwards, coming from the center, and look at the strokes. Observe how the strokes land on the surface, right? Okay, it's coming downwards. Again, same thing, we are working gently. Okay. All right. You can observe as the paint starts to dry up, you get a very soft appearance. All right. You will not get any brush strokes if you work gently. All right. And maybe you can, if circumstances allow, you can just take a light stipple and sort of build up the opacity of the paint. All right. So you can see, just work repeated. Just repeat the steps. Just repeat the applications. And you can see the highlights starting to appear. Right? Right? We have to do it slowly and carefully, right, in order for the smooth transition to appear. Right? There are no shortcuts to this step, right? You just have to be patient and just have, you need to control your strokes, right? And brush it downwards. Again, remember, always complete your stroke by pulling the brush away from the surface. Right, so just pulling down, going down, and just repeat this application. Okay, all right. As I said, you can also, towards the top, you can build up the opacity with just a light stipple, just a light and gentle stipple. Okay, as I said, this will also help to replicate the coarse texture on the M1 helmet. All right, so let's be gentle in terms of the strokes, and the brush strokes will not be all conspicuous. All right? Right, just be gentle. If you are gentle with the strokes, right, the effect will be soft. Okay, so just slightly just stipple, right, and gradually you can see the opacity of the paint building up. All right, so you can see now again, adding more paint again. Just be gentle, and just, right, taking more paint now, testing it out. Okay, right. This is the second pass. Again, you can see the helmet slightly appearing lighter. You can see the helmet appearing lighter. So it's a gradual build-up of paint that we are concerned. All right. So this is a variation of the dry brushing technique. So you can just go slow, lightly and gently. Just remember, as if we are applying ointment on an open wound. All right. Gentle strokes, all right, gentle tapping will produce soft strokes, or rather soft effects. All right. If you want a soft effect, make sure you apply the paint softly. All right. So as the paint gets more opaque, right, you can actually increase the pressure of your strokes. So any discoloration can be made by incorporating more colors, right? So now I'm going to do some effects of wear on the helmet. So taking the acrylic retarder medium, combining it with a bit of the black red here. All right, and just to create maybe perhaps some black here, some orange. So you're going to be putting black, orange, and red together to kind of create like a rust-like mixture. All right, adding some water here. Some black, red again, orange again. Okay, just putting in, you're going to combine it with some retarder medium. All right, let's test it out. Okay, test out the opacity and the coverage and consistency, and just lightly we can just, place. Right. And let's see how it appears. So we're going to use this as a base to see which areas are going to receive the darker tones. So if it doesn't show up, it's good. So it's not so conspicuous. It allows you to plan where you want to place the chips for the helmet. All right, just take a bit of the black. All right, adding a bit more black to it, and just lightly dabbing again. Just lightly dabbing on the areas that are going to receive the chips and scratches. All right, just mainly in the top there. All right, you can add a bit of orange and brown. All right, because if you want to simulate any dirt accumulating along the brim of the helmet, you can just apply as like a wash over it. Right, if you do not want the watermarks to appear, and then you can actually, apply a thin layer of the retarder medium, and then again using the filbert brush and diffuse it if you need. All right, so you can see we are working very cautiously. It's very subtle. So, right, this is to prevent any mistakes from happening. Right, and if you do make any mistakes, you will know that there are ways to rectify them. So I'm going in again, the second passing with some maybe a bit of black to show the chips better. Oops, right. Okay. So if you overdo the chips, you can, while the paint is still setting, you can actually wash it away. Or either that, you can also paint it over, all right, using the base color, then just gently dabbing over, all right, to rectify any areas that you are unsatisfied with. Okay, testing out, and then this is how you can correct. Again, you're going to use the filbert brush as well to sort of soften the effect. Yep, again, remember this is the feathering technique to create a diffused effect. Right, take a bit more, maybe just shape that chip. Yep, all right. Okay, and any areas if any stuck areas can be sort of softened with the filbert brush. And finally, for highlights, you can actually take a bit of around the edges. We're going to use a very bright green here, combine it with the olive drab mix, and just paint it along the brim of the helmet. All right, this is just to imitate the appearance of light capturing at the edge there. All right, this helps to create the contrast. All right, so you can see this is a very simple demonstration in terms of how we can actually use a bit of variation of the dry brush technique to actually create the gradient on a smooth surface. Yep, and I'm sure you can also find users of this particular technique to paint drum cans, jerry cans, anything that's round.